because actually what we're doing is helping entrepreneurs and small businesses build communities so that they're able to impact whatever mission they have. And it's the same with High Vibe Women, where it's like, I actually, even on like, we're very much hosts of High Vibe Women. Like, we don't do a lot of speaking. You're not going to probably see us do a workshop, but it's because I truly believe that as women, we need to be learning from each other, and there needs to be so much more collaboration over competition. So like, I want to go first. And I want to show that. And I'm the first person to bring a social media manager on stage. I'm the first person to tell like someone who has another podcasting agency. I'm the first to show them my whole inner system. Like, because I think like I want to go first in that. And so I think where this all comes from, like, it's like my initial roots of being a community builder that have now bled into wanting to do events, but bled into like wanting to create like a community for myself. Like, it's like often we create things like we wish existed and that we need.
How are entrepreneurs like us daring bravely to build a stage, ditch the sweatpants, and step up to the mic? How do we create our own transformative events so we can get our message out into the world in a bigger way that's not only profitable, but it's actually something we can be proud of? That's the question. And the answers are inside this podcast. My name is Sarah Pfeiffer. Welcome to Greenroom Central. Today, I brought into Greenroom Central Studios Kristina Bartold, CEO of The Social Snippet. She loves helping entrepreneurs and small businesses grow their communities online using social media and podcasting. She's also host of the High Vibe Women events that create community for Canadian female entrepreneurs. Kristina, welcome to Greenroom Central Studios. Say hello to Linchpin Nation.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I've been looking forward to this ever since I found you on Instagram. And I think it was via Chris Harder, because I'm a big follower of his and love his podcast. And ever since then, I've just been smitten with your positive energy. You just light up a room. I could tell. And I know I haven't been in a physical room with you yet, but just kind of observing from the outside looking in on Instagram, I could just tell that you are, like your brand says, like high vibe. And I value that so much. And
thank you. That's such a wonderful compliment. And all of Chris's people, like everyone who's connected with Chris or follows Chris, like they're good people.
I agree. Isn't that cool to have mentors that you just know they attract the best people?
Totally. Yeah. Even this year I'm in Chris's elite mastermind, and people keep being like, oh, like you keep like investing with Chris like over and over again. I'm like, yeah, it's because he actually brings together like most amazing people. Like no matter what room I'm in, where he's there, it's always so incredible.
Yeah. So I've just noticed how you show up on social media and let people into your life, and that's super attractive. And then the confidence that you display on your topic of expertise and your love of events like me. So I've been excited, and I'm glad that we're here together today. I thought I'd start with a question, just to have a little fun and have you share a story. So a little backstory on me. About 6.5 years ago now, I made my way into my very first personal development seminar. It was 4 days, and it absolutely changed the entire trajectory of my life. Within 11 months of being in that room, I'd left a 16-year corporate career and started my own business. I had sold our house and paid off all the debt we'd been under for a decade and a half, and moved from the Midwest in the United States, where we'd been our entire lives, to the Pacific Northwest. I'm out in Oregon now. And it was just such a massive shift. And so the question for you is, what's a room that you made it into that changed your life?
This is such a good question. So, and this kind of brings back like why I'm so passionate about events too, Sarah, because similarly, we start the Social Snippet. We're kind of getting started. I'm listening to Chris and Lori's podcast. And Chris says something about Fast Foundations, which is a mastermind that he used to run. And he was like, it's the last round I'm ever going to run it. I'd love for anyone who's interested to be a part of it. And at that time, that was a stretch for us. We had just started. Now our business is multi-six figure. But at the time, like we had maybe 3 or 4 clients.
Yeah.
And I begged Maria to go. Like, I was like, it's an online thing. We're like a 2-for-1 because we're like, business partners. This is going to be so great. And she was like, if you're passionate about doing this, like, let's do it. And what was so amazing about that room, even that it was virtual, and then I went on to do the in-person as well, is it was so incredible to be around people who saw you for the way you saw you.
Yes.
Early on when you're starting a business, it's easy to get stuck in the like, oh, I'm a this. Like, similarly, I had a 6-figure job I loved. Everybody, I had the job, my dream job. I had the job I thought I'd have when I was 60 at 28. I loved my coworkers. Like, there's just so much like good stuff. And I felt like I needed more.
Mm.
And the people I was around, like, gave me so many accolades, and it was so great. Like, I had such a good thing going. Like, how could I want more? Like, how could there be anything else? Like, what else? Like, so greedy, And being around people where I was like, I have this vision of being like an entrepreneur that runs a business that's, looks like this. And people seeing you in that light helps you step into that light more.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really transformational experience. I went on to do it twice, and then as well as mentor in it later on in its last round. And so it's incredible to think about like how much that room really like shaped me, which is why I'm actually so passionate about our secondary brand, which is High Vibe Women, which is creating rooms in Canada for women, because I would go to a lot of these rooms and you'd sit there and all of them would be Canadians, like Canadians traveling to the States to learn from Chris and Lori, to learn from all these amazing people. And so I wanted to bring back some of that magic here in Canada too.
Yeah, I think that's so special that you're doing that. And I kind of wonder, do you see the work that you're doing to further the Canadian female entrepreneurial space in Canada? Do you see that as a little bit of a give back, because you're almost doing you're creating the room you wish existed, right?
Totally, 100%. And it's neat, like something we started with, and this is something that I think I'm really passionate about too, is that like anybody can start doing events if you're passionate about it. If an event, in my opinion, can be one other person. It can be one other person. And my mentors, she like invited a bunch of people for lunch every week, consistently just invited people for lunch. That's so powerful, like just bringing people together. And so for us, it was just about getting started. We started with some small lunches, bringing people together. The first one had 12 people, second one had 25, and we've kind of grown from there. And it's amazing to see them connect with each other, but then also look to us for mentorship and guidance and scaling advice and things like that, which I'm like so amped and excited to give people.
Where did you get the bravery there? And also, how did you give yourself the permission to start small? Because I think a lot of people feel embarrassed to say, like, I'm just going to start with a room of 12. But then look how far you've grown, right?
Yeah. So in terms of getting the confidence and, bravery, I guess, Sarah, like to put it in your words, like to do some of these things small, it's remembering that like if one person is impacted by your mission, it's worthy. So for us, it's sort of really small. And I can tell you a little bit where the idea came from, because that could be helpful. But basically, one of the things we were talking about at a mastermind is that Past Foundations, actually, we were talking about was audience growth. And so many people were like, oh, the algorithm, Instagram. And, I always have advice about that because I run a social media agency. But I was like, oh, like interesting. And Chris actually said, Chris was like, who's winning are the people who can get people in person. Because there's people who have magic. And I think I'm one of those people where I'm like much better in person than I am online. And I always like laugh because I'll meet somebody online and then I'll see them in person and there's no recollection. Like it's like I'm meeting them for the first time. It does not resonate the same way. But if I meet you in person, I'll remember everything you ever tell me about.
Okay.
Like, and so it's like, it's such a different kind of experience. And so I thought to myself, and I talked to Maria about it, I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if we just got like a few women together?
Yes.
We have these amazing groups of entrepreneurial women. We had all these group chats where we were celebrating each other. We were talking about big things. Like all of our friends were scaling towards 7 figures. Like it was so cool. And we thought everyone kind of needed that. And so we just didn't actually did it like as a little private invite the first time, and we asked people. And I think that sometimes removes the barrier a bit, Sarah, like where you're not like, hi, everyone, come to my event. Here's like the link. Oh, still 40 tickets, like 39 tickets now. My mom bought in. Like, you want to be able to protect yourself a bit. So what we did is we did some market research and voice noted a whole bunch of girls that we were like, okay, we're connected to you. Maybe we're not best friends. Maybe you're a client, like something like that. And we say, hey, like, would you come for lunch here? It's a like fixed plate. Yeah. And so it costs $75. Me and Maria, we made $4 on the first one because we bought everybody like a little gift. And afterwards we were like, oh, that wasn't profitable, but that was so impactful.
Yeah.
And the women got together. There was like 13 women. We were like in the basement of this like vegan restaurant, and it started at 1 o'clock. And we just did a few things that we knew would work, like in getting them connected with each other, which I can talk about. But it was 4 o'clock, and I was like, we need to leave this restaurant. Like, it's time to go, ladies. But it's because there weren't these kinds of spaces. So I think
Yeah.
going first and trying things, you might try something and one person shows up. Thinking about the impact you can make on that one person, I think changes the lens of how you show up differently.
Mm. So true. That's a really important. I think so much of the entrepreneurial game is mindset and
Mhm.
how we kind of focus on self-care in the thoughts that we think. Is this
Totally.
is this a space that you've put some attention to in your own business? It's like how like managing self-talk so that you can put yourself out there and do these really big things, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs feel like doing what you're doing and creating the in-person room is scary and perhaps overwhelming, and imposter syndrome pops up.
So I'm just gonna tell you, imposter syndrome still pops up for me all the time. So like every time
Okay.
we put any kind of event on, I'm like, are people gonna come to this? Like is like, what if we put that out and nobody buys that?
Yeah.
And and then we just put a massive deposit on the space. Like,
Yeah.
so there's a few tactical things we always do before launching anything to make sure we have a bit of buy-in from people. Like, again, and I don't mind sharing any of those, but it's just, I think mindset work is so important when it comes to events and any kind of entrepreneurship, right? Because if you're feeling like levels of imposter syndrome, it can keep you from doing the big things that are
Yes.
actually the stuff that's like needle moving in your business. So I know for myself, like I used to be so nervous about like asking for things. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not an asker at all. So when we had this vision for our 100-person event that we had in January, I knew it was going to require sponsorship.
Mm.
Like, I knew it. I was like, this is the only way we can make it affordable for people. I don't even actually, truthfully, didn't really care about making money out of it
Mm.
myself, but it was more about like, I wanted it to be like so good.
Yeah.
So I started asking people for sponsorship, and I was amazed by how quickly people said yes.
Mm.
And it's because I built up goodwill with people, right?
Yeah.
From like going to their events, speaking at their events, like, showing up for people, sharing their podcast episodes. Like,
Yeah.
I had a really good audience that I had already been building. So your first event doesn't need to be a $500 person stadium. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be a $500 ticket,
Yep.
but it's thinking about like, how do you build goodwill with your audience so that when it's that time to do something like that,
Mm.
you have some buy-in and you have people who are excited to buy from you. So totally, me and my business partner face imposter syndrome all the time. And I think the only way around it is just to continue to work on it and continue to validate the stuff that you're working
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Well, since you brought it up, let's talk tactics for a couple
Mhm.
minutes, because I think that the game of hype on social media plays a really big role
Mhm.
in filling events, and that since that's your expertise, I'd love to know, like, what tactics do you employ when you're thinking about getting started filling another room?
Mhm. So I think one of the things that we do well is we do get buy-in from the beginning from people to get a sense if this is something people would want, but not so much that we're asking their opinion on if we should do it. So I think there's that like line there where people might say like, "Oh, I would love, you connect with some of your super fans, some of those people who are like they buy everything that you do
Yeah.
or they come to everything you
Mhm.
do, and you appreciate and you love on those people so much, and you message them and you say, "Hey, thinking about running an event on this date. This is what the makeup would be. Like, what would you pay for that?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?" And not them being like, "Oh, it's my sister's baby shower." And you're like, "Oh, can't do that date." Like that's not it. But it's more about like conceptually, does that make
Yeah.
sense for people?
Yeah.
I think one of the things business owners fall into a lot is we build things for ourselves, not our audience.
Mm.
And so when we build things for ourselves, like people don't want them. So for example, a few years ago, we had an incredible summer retreat, like a really incredible summer retreat, like sold out. I never even had to advertise it. I sold my entire retreat like that, private invites. And I was like, we're going to do a winter retreat. It's going to be so cute. Like everyone's going to want to do this winter retreat. And like, I'm going to price it the exact same. And it's going to be like a banger. Like, yeah, nobody signed up for this winter retreat. Nobody. Not one person. Not even my super fans. Not even the people who like, I'm like, hey, let's do this. And they're like, I'm all in. No one was coming. And it was fine because I didn't put any deposits down. Everything
Yeah.
was fine. But what was interesting about it was I did no market research. And that was actually my mistake,
Mm.
was I didn't ask people about that. Or we wanted to run a retreat this June. We started to like kind of send out some invites. All our clients are moms. They're
Yeah.
like, I'm not doing anything in June other than being with my children. Like, it's busy, right?
Yes.
Like, and I'm not a mom, so I didn't think about that, right? So sometimes we have these blind spots. So I would say the first tactic is really just talking to your audience. And I get this question too, Sarah, a lot, so I'm just going to preemptively answer it, where people will be like, but I don't have an audience and I have something I want to sell. Like, I want to have an event and I don't have the audience to sell it to.
Yes.
So I would say, like, building, again, that goodwill, whether that be free little events. I know someone that does an 8 a.m. every Thursday morning event and is just getting the reps in. I'm getting people in and like learning with them, right?
Yes.
So I think it's like just that's a huge one, is just getting that buy-in from people. And then the second thing with events too, we actually didn't do a good job with this, but a lot of our clients do, is really leveraging your speaker's audience. So we were pretty sold out by the time we even announced our speaker. So it wasn't like a huge, we didn't quite need it, but I have some future event dreams that might be a bit bigger. And I think I will need to leverage some people.
Yes.
But if you've got people who have an audience, even if it's small, even if it's 500 people, it's 250 people, those could be engaged people.
Yeah.
So how do you create influencers or ambassadors or use speakers to bring in new people? Giving your speakers an affiliate, giving them a special code for their audience, getting them connected somehow, using them on a LinkedIn or Instagram live. Like,
Yes.
those types of things make a big deal. So I think leveraging kind of those relationships with people, I think, is also really important.
Mm-hmm. Those are great tips.
Thank you.
What I'm curious about next is the impact. You've touched on a little, but the impact that doing these events are having on you as an entrepreneur and like filling your cup. What are you able to put that into words, like what it's like to do this work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, there's a few things that like very impactful. One is like I love being a host. Like, that's a piece of like who I am. And so it's nice to host those experiences. So even like at the event, this 100-person event, like I still I'm mulling. It's like March now as we're recording, and I'm still sitting with actually exactly 2 months. And I'm still sitting with the fact I'm at this event and I go up to people, I'm like, hey, I'm Kristina. People are like, yeah, we know. Like, yeah, like, this is your event. But like, there are people I still didn't meet.
Yes.
Like, and I never got the chance to connect with, and they just believed in us so much. And we got the most positive feedback. Like, it was so incredible. So I think from a brand perspective, it was really big. Like, I could see like, Instagram followers and like all that stuff. But more than that, like, us being able to show that level of authority around the topics that we're passionate about. So like, we did a live podcast recording where we talked about community building, because Maria and I, we own the Social Snippet, and it's a social media and podcasting agency. But really our focus is like, we're about teaching people how to build community through these platforms. I actually don't care about followers. I care about like having an engaged community. And so doing that was so impactful for our brands. And like, and did it lead to work? For sure. Like, having people come and then us talk about social media, and then people being like, man, I do need social media help. And I haven't had anybody to think about doing that with, great. Like, it keeps people top of mind for you. And that's what being in rooms are. Like, I know for a lot of these folks, they're running events, but also I think it's so important to go to events, because you become top of mind for people when you meet them and you leave a good impression.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know there's so many people who make referrals for me all the time who have never given any business to and have never been clients, but it's because we've had a great conversation, or they know that like, we run events or whatever. And that's pretty impactful.
Where do you think that love of hosting started for you?
So it's funny, because I think when I look back at the thread of my life, like when I'm like, oh, like what's the thread so far, only being 31, is like really about community. And I can remember it like my first job being a camp counselor. Loved that. Then I went and I was a college RA. And then once I was done being a college RA, right? So fun. After I was a college RA, I was a residence manager for years.
Me too.
Like, loved that small world. But see, because I love the community. Like, I actually don't care about residents. Like, I don't care. Like, but I still get teary sometimes when people talk to me. They're like, oh, my daughter's going to university. And I'm like, oh, what a pivotal time. Oh my gosh. Like, this is going to be so transformational, because I love that age group and I love how their brain works. And so I worked in residence up until I came and started the Social Snippet. I was then in my career, I was like a student conduct manager. But all of it with the lens of like, how do people interact with each other? How
Mm.
do you build spaces where people love to interact? I used to do these really cool training programs. My two of my team members got married last week. Like, it's like, that is like what I love. And so it's neat to think about like that being the thread. So even with social media, and Maria and I tell this story all the time on other podcasts, is that when I asked her to start the social snippet, she said to me, no, because I was doing some one-on-one coaching. I was doing personal development coaching with people because I'm a certified leadership coach and all, the whole shebang. And it was going really well. It was like great. But I couldn't see myself doing it full time because I don't love one-on-one like coaching, just because I love groups. And so Maria, I asked her, I'm like, listen, people keep asking me to do their social because ours looks so good. Like, do we do it? And Maria was like, no, I will not, because it's not impactful. And like, I'm meant to be on this earth to do impactful work, and that's not impactful work. Like, I like get them to get a Canva template. And it took us talking so much about the fact that like, this is the most impactful work we could be doing, because actually what we're doing is helping entrepreneurs and small businesses build communities so that they're able to impact whatever mission they have. And it's the same with High Vibe Women, where it's like, I actually, even on like, we're very much hosts of High Vibe Women. Like, we don't do a lot of speaking. You're not going to probably see us do a workshop, but it's because I truly believe that as women, we need to be learning from each other, and there needs to be so much more collaboration over competition. So like, I want to go first, and I want to show that. And I'm the first person to bring a social media manager on stage. I'm the first person to tell like someone who has another podcasting agency, I'm the first to show them my whole inner system. Like, because I think like I want to go first in that. And so I think where this all comes from, like, it's like my initial roots of being a community builder that have now bled into wanting to do events, but bled into like wanting to create like a community for myself. Like, it's like often we create the things like we wish existed and that we need,
Yeah.
of amazing entrepreneurial women.
Mm. Wow. That's so neat.
I told you I'm long-winded. Before we got on, I told Sarah, I'm like, I'm long-winded. You're gonna ask me a question, I'll be here for hours.
I wouldn't put you in that category. I've had longer, and I actually think your answers are they're just right. I think
Thank you.
I love your stories, and I'm wondering this. I'm sensing networking is a key to success for you, and it seems to be another one of those threads, like the community building. But I wonder, is this an innate talent, or is this something that you've had to hone because you saw the value of it in business?
So I'll be honest, I do think it's probably a mix of both. I'm naturally like pretty extroverted, and I'm very lucky, like in the sense that like I told you, like I can meet someone and I'll remember everything about them. So it's easy to build a relationship
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, like, you told me this one time and now I remember your kids' names. And
Yeah.
there's this funny story. I met this woman once at a conference, and when I worked in student affairs still, and it had been like 4 years, like we hadn't seen each other. And I sat next to her. I was like, Amy, right? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah. Like last time we talked, like your kids were starting elementary school, and they were like, they go to this school in this area because I grew up down the street, and I remember you were telling me about it. And like, did they decide to do French immersion? Like, what was it? And she was like, is your name Kristina? Like I'm not confirmed on that. Like, but that's been such a gift of mine, is like retaining that useless information that doesn't matter for anything else, where like it would be helpful if I could have like, honed that in school. But it's funny. Like, I think that's why, but I do think networking, it's like, I really do believe in that whole statement around like your network is your net worth, because I have been so like indebted to folks. Like, that's how we built. I've never run an ad for our business.
Wow.
I've never like really marketed. It's always been about referrals and relationships. And so I know that works for every business, finding good power partners, having those conversations, adding value back to people, which is, I think, my difference in networking is that I don't just meet people. I don't just like, not to toot my own horn, but I don't like go and like, I'm like, oh, Sarah, like so good to meet you. Bye.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Sarah, like, what do you need in your
Yeah.
business right now? I have 3 intros I'm going to make you today. I spent an hour and a half this morning making introductions for people, like via email.
Wow.
But just like, I probably sent out 18 emails because I actually believe that these people are going to make connections.
Yeah.
And like, I've had people come out of those connections and be business partners and like do like really cool stuff. And I don't need any part of that. Like, I don't do referral bonuses with people. Like, I don't do that stuff because I'm all about goodwill. And so I think when we're networking, like, it's really important not to do it from a space of like, okay, I'm going to go into this room and I'm going to treat it like a meat market and I'm going to try to get as much money as I can. I know you're planting seeds for the future. Like the money comes when it comes.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. I'm wondering, I value lifelong learning so much, and I subscribe to the school of thought. We have to kind of we have to design our own curriculum with intention. And so I'd love to know what, 3 parts. What book are you reading right now? And why did you
Mhm.
pick that book? And what's one thing you learned so far?
Yeah, so I'm reading Burn the Boats right now. Michael Higgins, is that his name? So bad with names like of authors and movie characters. Do not ask me about any of the Love is Blind characters, and I watch it all the time. But yeah, so Michael Higgins Burn the Boats, and the concept of why I was interested in it was like Lori had mentioned it a bunch of
Mm,
times around like the reading behind it is that like you got to burn the boats like when
yes.
you're have you read
I
it?
haven't. No.
No.
But I understand the
Um
concept of yeah, I've heard that before.
yeah, like no second
Right.
choices kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like where it's like you just kind of got to go all in on something. You get to the island, you burn the
Yep.
boat because you got to survive there kind of thing. And so it's just interesting because I don't think I'm in a season where I have anything to burn.
Mm,
Like, where I have had seasons like that
yep.
where I was leaving my 9 to 5 and I remember feeling the
Yeah.
burn. Like I needed to cut the cord. And even they were like, you could stay part time. And I was like, oh, I could stay part time. Like, awesome. And then I was like, but I need to burn the boats. Like, I need this to be over. Um, so I think that's what resonates with me. But I also think like why that message is so important is because like I don't think people should be making stupid choices and like going ham and giving up everything and all of that, but I think so often we're limited by our
Mm,
fears and we're so scared to do big things because there isn't a backup. And I think it's actually really important that like when we're like building whatever it is that we're building, that it's okay. Like it's okay to have like, some plans in place, but sometimes we need to go all in and we need to just try.
yeah.
And so I can think of so many people with events. I actually had someone reach out to me recently and she was like, I really want to do a podcast recording. And I was like, great, go do a podcast recording. Like, yay, live event. And she's like, would you come be on the podcast? And I was like, for sure, like 100%, I'm super down. She's like, I'm just so scared nobody's going to come. And if like you're there, you have a good network, you could probably invite some people. My business partner will for sure come. My husband will come for sure. And I was like, no, girl, like I don't even need to advertise this because you need to do this.
Mm,
And this is about you and not about me.
mm.
And so people are going to be coming for you, not me. And I'm so excited about that. And so she's already had a bunch of ticket sales and stuff. She just needed someone to reinforce that for her. And so yeah, I just think I love the concept of it. And I'm also a lifelong learner. I'm always listening to a few different books and always trying to figure out like how to integrate. And I also think sometimes it's important to listen to like non-business books, like
Mm.
leadership books, other things that are kind of going on in the world. Because it helps us be a more like well-rounded human.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think I've been reading I don't remember what is. My daughter's so
It's
good
hard.
at this. If it's fiction or nonfiction, they have some storybooks. We'll just say that that she's assigned reading for school and reading it together. And it just being something it's totally not business. It's not personal development, and I think it is a gift to have that
Mhm.
time when my brain is in another space that's not like go 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 achieve achieve achieve. What do I need to like, let's learn the thing so I can go do the thing. And yeah, it does allow your mind to have that little like respite, if you will, the vacation, and kind of wander and think more creatively and differently about
Well, I also
projects.
think too, like often we're reading and we're reading books we don't even want to read.
Mm.
Like because we have to, like I have to, like I'm doing air quotes, but like I've had that many. Like there's a book I actually really love the book. It's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan
Oh, so
Martell.
good.
So good. And Dan's like a little Canadian genius, so I'm like all about it.
Yes.
Anytime a Canadian releases a book, I'm like, it's time. We're coming. But I love Dan, but the implementation that book requires, in my opinion, is just too much for me right now. Like I feel like underwater. So like me being like, I need to hire an executive assistant to buy my time back. Like I'm like, not today. Like I can't. So sometimes I feel guilty about having it parked, but I'm also like, that's something that I'm gonna keep coming back to. I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep listening to. And yeah, like we don't have to do all things
It's
immediately.
so funny you bring that up because there's like a worksheet in the book that I
No,
just
thank you.
printed off like 14 copies yesterday because it's his time and energy audit. And I've been sitting on it for however many months since I read the book when it came out a year ago. And I'm like, no, it's finally time. Like, do the work that Dan says to do. And
yeah. Dan's awesome. Even like, I don't know, I've mentioned Chris a few times on the podcast, but his episode with Chris on Chris's show was absolutely amazing.
Okay, I am feeling a little awkward that I have not listened to that yet, and I'm going to add that to my list.
Yeah, do it. It's so
when
good.
Spotify gave me my Wrapped at the end of last year, it was like, your top podcast is Chris Harder, and then it's like, and you're in the top 3% of all listeners, and I'm like, why aren't I flipping in the top 1%? Like, why isn't that number higher? I listened to all the shows, and then I had to think to myself, I was like, no, you really haven't listened to absolutely every single one, so get off your high horse.
Have you ever met Chris in person, Sarah?
No, I haven't yet.
You gotta.
I have intentions. It's interesting. We vacation at the same spot every summer. And yeah, we both Wisconsin roots, cheeseheads.
I love it.
I wonder, as you've built a very successful business on the back of Instagram, and you've also built a significant Instagram following, and you do it for others. And I wonder, what about that work makes you the most proud of, like, what you've been able to build at the Social Snippet?
Mm-hmm. So, like, so many things, I have so much to be proud of, like, and not in a cocky way, but like in a joyous kind of way. Like, the people are incredible, like, that we work with. And to have had the opportunity to like give jobs to people has been like a really big blessing. Yeah. Like, I don't take that lightly. But in terms of Instagram, I would say really like what's been cool is seeing people build communities. Like, no matter what size their audience is, no matter what's kind of going on for them, like they'll have launches that are really successful that change the trajectory of their family, like that change the family vacation that's available to them, that change, those things that are really incredible. So I'm most proud about that. And I think on my end, like, it's so funny. You said you have a like significant Instagram following. To me, it doesn't feel significant, and I think that that's the thing. It's like, we're always in comparison where I'm like, oh, like 5,000 is like pretty good. Like, I'm happy with 5,000. Like, I remember when I really wanted 5,000, and now I'm like, oh, I can't wait to have 10. Right. Like, that's going to be awesome. Yeah. Like, we're always striving for something different, but I'm really proud of like the community of folks that I have there, like, and how much they care, and how much I care in return. Like, I always use this example on podcasts. It's funny, but I had emergency gallbladder surgery last January, and I like documented it, like, and not to be like a documentarian or anything like that, but it was just like, I was like, hi, here I'm like at this hospital, and they're like refusing me care because we're in Canada, and refusing me care, and like basically told me to go home, and like, I'm not going home, and like I've talked to 10 people, and I'm like not leaving. And then the next one, I was like, and you can see I'm weeping, like my eyes are like bright red, like, and because I like went missing for a few days, and then up like 6 hours until they told me I could get my gallbladder out, and I'm like starving, like, but it was just like this funny story, like I had an infection, like it was like a whole thing. Not funny. It was funny, haha, now, funny not then. But I'm sitting there, and I'm not joking, Sarah, when I woke up from my surgery, because they finally gave it to me after I essentially put them in a hostage situation, is I had 200 DMs from 5,000 followers or 4,000 followers. Wow. And probably less actually at that time. And 200, like, that doesn't seem like a lot when you do the math on that, but 200 people reached out to me to be like, hey, this is what helps, like, when you are struggling, like, with your gallbladder. After your gallbladder, like, don't forget, like, you need to take digestive enzymes. They're not going to tell you that because, like, it's more natural care, but if you don't take them, like, you're never going to be able to, like, hold going to the bathroom. Yeah. Like, things like that where it's, like, random strangers were, like, super weird, but I took this, like, supplement one time, and it was really helpful for me. And so I was so touched by that. Like, it took me weeks to get back to people. Like, I was so touched. And then I was at a party recently, and this girl was like, hey, this is so weird. I don't know you. And I was like, okay. And she's like, I follow you on Instagram. I had to get my gallbladder out. And I stopped drinking coffee because I was having gallbladder attacks every single day. But you had mentioned that was a huge trigger for you. I stopped drinking coffee, and then my gallbladder was totally fine. And I had to get it out anyway, but I was able to live like so healthily for a few months that like, and I was like, wow, that's so awesome. Like, that's so cool. But I'm not a health influencer, like, by any means. So it's just so funny. Yeah. Like, how like we have this community that's so much more than social media. It's so much more than
Mhm.
Instagram, like
Mhm.
than LinkedIn, like than any of these things. It's like you actually have people who are like in it with you.
Mm.
And I think that's a great example of building community, like for me. But I've also seen that so many of my clients have done that as well, where they build a community around a very specific topic. And when they branch out, people branch with them. Like,
Yeah.
people always say the niche is you. And I really believe that, where it's like people want to be part of your journey. They love a come up.
Yeah, do you follow Chalene Johnson? Yeah,
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
she's a great example of what you just shared, that they kind of people maybe followed her for one thing, fitness, and then kind of were like, "Oh, you're into, fitness now," or like, "Now you've got some hacks for helping me focus," or whatever it is. It's like kind of, you know, just you fall in love with who they are, and
Yeah.
they make you feel seen and heard and celebrated, even though you don't know them. And it's always very attractive to me. I think I'm such an introvert that I I look up to people who have been able to put themselves out there like that. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I think too, it's like Lori's the Harder is also a great example of this. And people always laugh because my best friend was like super into Lori Harder in her fitness days. Like she was an isogenics,
Mm,
the whole thing. And that's not my speed, but I loved Chris. I heard him on a podcast. He was really great. I was interested in
yeah.
him. And so I would see Lori speak at events and I'd be like, Lori, like, Lori,
Yeah.
there's Lori, fitness Lori. And now I'm like a total Lori convert. Like
Mm,
I am like, this woman could sell me anything. Like
really?
she could sell me anything because she like is so into the personal development space. She's so smart with business. She's so insightful. Like
Yep.
she has all these awesome qualities that I had to learn. But like we're allowed to pivot. And I think that's even the thing with events. When we started High Vibe Women, I actually had some like resistance because I was like, I can't do another thing. Like
Mm,
people are going to be like, what is this woman doing?
yeah.
Like the social media agency. I have a master's degree in leadership. I have a master's degree in conflict resolution. Thought I was going to be a mediator. Like my friends have been on a roller coaster with me from the beginning. And like honestly, every time I see one of them, they're like, any new kind of like business ideas, like any new careers. But it's like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, and we're allowed to pivot and like we're allowed to change. And so I think that's really important for us to always remember too, is that people want to be along with us for the ride. And that's why a personal brand is really important. Because even if you're running events or whatever that looks like having a personal brand is so crucial, even if you've got a really thriving business.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I wish I wish I knew which mentor gave me that advice early on, but it I don't know, maybe it was Marie Forleo. I don't know, but
Mm,
it felt like, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. It needs to be me,
totally.
Oprah.
Well, even like I have a friend and she's so successful, but she sold a seven-figure
Mm,
business. Like and then when she sold her seven-figure business, she didn't have a personal brand.
mm,
So she started from scratch,
yes,
right? That's nuts. She's put in the work, right? So it's
yes,
like I know the social snippet won't be my last business.
yes,
Like God willing, I'm still kicking.
yeah.
But like, and it's like, I don't think it'll be my last business. And therefore, like, I want to set up my personal brand for whatever's
Mm,
next.
mhm.
So sometimes I'm like, maybe I would be a network marketer. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. Like, there's so many things that like I could do.
yeah.
Which is the cool thing about the internet and the cool thing even about events, right? Like Lori's running Tribe Called Bliss or her tribe, like what were those events called? Where she would get all the women
Yeah,
together.
I think I didn't follow her. I've always followed Chris. But, yeah, I think I remember that the Bliss
Yeah,
events.
Bliss
Oh,
Project.
yes, that.
Yeah. So she would have Bliss Project and it would have like, all these women in personal development who maybe weren't
Yeah,
entrepreneurs. Now she runs events that are like exclusively for
yeah,
entrepreneurs, like girlfriends in business. People have been along for the pivot. The same people are at the same
yeah,
events. Like they just pick and choose what makes
yeah.
sense. So I think for those listening who might be like, oh, like, will people come? Like I've pivoted. Like people aren't paying as close attention to us as I think we
Mm,
think they are.
mm. That's so true. That's so true.
Mm.
Because we're all really like focused on ourselves, you know? Yeah.
Totally, and we've all seen people pivot, like, I've seen people do nutso stuff, like, where I'm like, "What are you doing?" And the thing is with a pivot, I think too, like, on social, like, you wanna bring people along for the journey, that's the important piece, is, like, you wanna make sure that people are, like, along with you, that they see the behind the scenes,
Yes.
you don't wanna build in the dark. And that's where people, like, even for our business with the social snippet, I had this coaching business, it's doing really well, I love this coaching business, and then, like, essentially one day I woke up and I was like, "No more coaching, and I'm doing social media." And I had to like break this to people. Like I
Yes.
had to be like, hey guys, like sorry, like one-on-one clients, I'm phasing you out. My group program, I'll do this to the end, but then we're done. Like, and people would come to me and I'd be like, like not for me, not for me. But that was awesome. And it was such a good opportunity. And I was so like
Yeah.
grateful. And like I got to like build outwards, and then people saw the beginning of the social snippet. And that's why we have so many raving fans around that brand, is
Yes.
because people like, give us leads where like I don't even expect that from them, but it's because they've seen it from the beginning. They've seen us build an integrity. They've seen us build relationships. They see the fun we have. We talk about the hard stuff. Like, so I think, Sarah, like that's a big piece, is like, if people are thinking about a pivot, and like, just bring your audience along. They want to be there for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I love me some good BTS footage.
Right?
I'm wondering, how do you celebrate all these like big milestones that you are enjoying along the way of starting new businesses or having a successful event? Like what's your ritual?
Mm. So this is probably something like, I don't want to give you a fake
Mm,
answer. You know what I mean? Where you're asking me a question that like, that's not something we're great
mm,
at. And it always feels like a little on to the
yeah.
next, where, we have our first 100-person event, and then I'm booking the next event because I'm like, I need another one. I need another hit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so lucky to have so many like wins. So something that I have implemented that has been like a bit of a gift has been like, I will at the beginning of the week write down like my intentions for the
Mm,
week. Like, so even like I was joking with Maria on Monday, and I was like, this week is a money making week. Like, I have a feeling we're gonna have some new clients. I think I have 9 discovery calls. So I was like, someone is gonna convert.
yes.
Someone's gonna
Yes.
convert. Statistically quite good.
Yes.
So I was like, this is gonna be a money making week. And yesterday 2 podcast clients converted and paid in full and like whatever. And that was such an exciting thing, because I was like, wow, like this is coming up for me. This is awesome. So I think that's a piece that I'm not good at, is like celebrating these wins. But I'm even really bad at, like, no, that's just like a, what are you bad at job interview? But I'm also really bad at receiving those wins and
Mm,
that joy from others. And to the point where sometimes I think I rob people from the opportunity of giving us
yes.
like good
Yes.
feedback, because I'm so like, oh yeah, it's fine, but it could be better. Like, oh, like even at my event, like I remember being like vividly talking to someone and her being like, oh, are there non-dairy options like for milk? And I was like, no. And oh my God, like how shitty. Like, can't believe I did that. Like, oh, I can't, even though we had a catering
Yes.
team that like, not really my
Yeah.
responsibility, like, and that could have just been feedback I gave, but I like spiraled
Oh.
about it. And so I think it's like trying to find, that's actually like my learning right now, is trying to find ways
Mm,
to just be like grateful for what's happening, and realize that like I'm living in like that future version of myself that I was excited to be in, and
yeah.
that next version's coming, but like celebrating me today.
Yeah. So it's interesting you bring that up because I just finished The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and
Mm,
Benjamin Hardy. And I intentionally read it because I was feeling like I wasn't doing a good enough job of celebrating. And there's a practice in there that I've
mm.
started since reading the book, where every night at the dinner table, we share 3 wins from the day, and then we forecast 3 wins for the next day. And then I write them
Wow.
in my journal, and then that's the first thing that I read the next morning.
Wow.
And it's pretty darn powerful. This concept of measuring backwards versus constantly measuring forwards to the ideal, like the horizon line that we won't get.
Mm.
And then he brings it back in the book that I'm finishing right now, which is 10x is easier than 2x.
Yeah, it's on my
Oh,
list. That and the gap and the gain are my
so
next.
good. And yeah, and they kind of bring the gap and the gain into the 10x book a little bit, and
Mm.
reinforce why that is necessary in order to make the big jumps. And it's, yeah, it feels so good to have like an intentional practice, and it's new, but I'm feeling like I used to
Mm.
do like write down wins in my journal and like put gold stars on them because why not? The home edit said it's good to put gold stars on things, and so I do
Yeah,
it.
fair.
But it does feel so much more intentional, and also to do it with loved ones opens up great conversations. So it's been helpful.
And we're always looking for proof, like I think that's another piece as well.
Yes.
Like, if you think something's bad, you're going to look for proof it's bad. If you think it's
Yes.
good, you're going to look for proof it's good. So even for me with sponsors, like when I first was asking people for sponsorship, which was like, Sarah, I'll have to say like one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Mm,
And that sounds so stupid, but it was like one of those things where I was like, it was one, asking people for money, and like I had to reframe what it meant. Like I was like, I'm not asking people for money. I'm actually giving them huge value.
Yes.
And I was giving these people like ovaries by the end. Like I was like, I will give you like anything you want. Like I will do whatever you want for this $5,000. Like you
Yes.
want a home? So I was really like showing up for that money, and people, almost every single sponsor responsored, like because they saw the value, which was such a gift. But that was so hard for me. And what the messaging I was telling myself kept being like, oh, like, people aren't going to want to do this because, I don't have a big audience. Like people aren't going to want to give us money because they don't see the value. Like they don't see the value in what we're doing. Maybe it's not valuable. Like maybe this is something only Maria and I like spiraling. Right.
Yeah.
And when I started to say to sponsors, like, change the narrative of like, this is actually an opportunity for you guys. You guys would be lucky to get to do this because these women are so engaged. They're high buyers, like high net worth. Like they're awesome. Like these women, like there were one of the people who was a vendor is Maven Shea. They're these beautiful slippers, these ergonomic slippers. They're $200 a pop. And the entire day I was like, what if no one buys these slippers? Like, what if nobody buys these slippers? And, they're there. Tons of people were walking around in these slippers, like at the event. Like, people, like the videographer came, the first thing she did was buy slippers, right? Because people are like excited about it. So I think when you change the messaging of like, okay, like I'm actually providing value, you start to see that for yourself. And then it actually starts to like increase who you're willing to ask. Because now I'm like much more like comfortable being like, hey, big brand, I'd love for you to sponsor this. If you say no, that's wrong on you. But I'm looking for proof that that's like, celebratory. And I see that with like, all the sponsors reconnecting and all of that. So I think when we can find examples of things that have gone well and be like, wow, like this is proof that it's gone well, and really lean into that rather than to lean into, oh my God, that was a hard month, or I lost a client, or ticket sales are going slowly or whatever, then I think it makes such a difference to your mindset.
I love that. I'm looking for proof, and what a great secondary reason or first reason. What a great reason, period, to keep track of wins and look, as proof of like how far we've come and that it's possible to keep going and achieve the next thing. Such great advice. I wonder, what dreams do you have in the event space that you haven't gotten started on, but you've cataloged? Like, I know someday this is going to happen.
So I would love high vibe. I haven't said this out loud anyway, I don't think. So you get the juicy scoops, Sarah. But like, I would love High Vibe Women to be like the premium event for Canadian entrepreneurial women. And it's like, it's the, create and cultivate of the States. It's the like thing that like entrepreneurial women are like so excited to come to. It's accessible, it's affordable, it's exciting. Like it's something that people are really looking forward to. And I want to continue to grow out some smaller events as well, like across the country, like that bring together, like, we go to Vancouver and we do a like 100-person event or a 50-person event. It's close to you.
Yeah, it is.
Come hop the border. But like it's just, I really want it to be something that moves farther than just where we are right now, because I see the impact of it. So that's kind of my big dream for it. And also like for me to be able to serve other events. Like, I go to lots of events. I love them. They're a huge way we've grown our business, and want to continue to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the part in the podcast where I give you any event strategy or advice, so I wonder if there's any challenges or something that you're brainstorming right now that you could use some advice on.
Ooh. Well, maybe I would love your hot tips on maybe scaling in a new area.
So I'm doing this right now with a podcast host that has a fairly wide national audience right now. And one thing he did right away was he actually has, this is surprising, but not everyone does this, but when he created his like email list, he did ask for city state. And so it gave a pretty good indication of like, oh, we're already sitting on this many people in this market and this many people in this market. Cool. Another thing that we're doing is he's in a lot of Facebook groups for this niche and putting out just kind of 1-2 liner questions like, hey, anybody in the the Pacific Northwest, just say hi below, and or who's in the LA area, say hi below, and doing that in kind of multiple places where he's kind of collected community as just like a super casual, putting out the feelers to get a sense like, would it be great to start in Dallas? Would it be great to start in, in Seattle? Would it be great to start in LA? Like, let's get a wind under our belts as we're starting this tour and proving out the concept. Other ideas, kind of very so you could do the waitlist concept, right, where I'm just like, I'm thinking about this, but then collect the location field so that you don't have to decide right away, but you just kind of put it out there. Yeah, hey, I'm thinking about, we're thinking about, like you've just the examples that you gave of doing your market research inside of the DMs, but do it on kind of a bigger scale. Just be like putting out the waitlist, like just people who are interested. Like, I'm dreaming this up. It's like not fully formed, but like, let me know if this is something you'd be interested in. Here's a waitlist page, but also the city, state, and that'll help you start to get a sense of like, where are my people at, so that like, where would it be a good place where I would have that that pre-existing audience to go from. And then are you primarily on Instagram, or do you do anything on Facebook?
Yeah, we cross-post to Facebook. We also do a lot on LinkedIn.
Okay, because I know there's also that you could be sourcing, like going out to all of the Facebook groups in the Canadian area and searching where are there pockets of like entrepreneurial, like pre-existing Facebook groups that serve Canadians, and then reaching out to those, the people who host those groups, and asking if they would, either allow you to buy the group or to make a post, or if they would want to be affiliate to kind of send some people your way. But that might be a few ways to do some, as you call it, the market research, to figure out where are the people and get a sense for where you'd want to start.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, some definitely new ideas there too. Just thinking about like Facebook groups and stuff like that. Because there's some really engaged communities. I know a lot of people think Facebook's dead, but there's some
there
really
are. I know that's not where I'm at, but everyone still has a Facebook login, and everyone probably still goes there every day because there's a Facebook group that like I have a program for one of my mentors that I adore this mentor, and that's where their group is. So I'm going on Facebook to go there and check on what's going on in there, even though there's no scrolling that happens on Facebook for me, but I'm so I'm from the outside looking in. I'm dead to you on Facebook, but I'm actually on there every day.
Yeah, totally.
And so there might be some pre-existing communities you could tap into to get a sense for like, okay, would this be a great place to drop into? But there's got to be a way that you could do some market research within your existing Instagram audience that would shed some light on, okay, where are my people at? And
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, pick your spot on the map. Well, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, it was. Thank you
Kristina, so much. Last question here. What have you got going on right now that we should know about? And share again for us, where can Linchpin Nation find you?
Oh, that's so kind. Well, this has been so fun, and any friend of Sarah's is a friend of mine, so come on over, come say hi. I would love to connect with you. But yeah, you can definitely find me best on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm at Kristina.Bartold. My name's spelled with a K because I'm Polish. And I know, fancy. And the best places that you can kind of find us, or what we've got going on right now, we have our High Vibe Women events. If you're a Canadian especially, and Americans welcome, but if you're a Canadian especially, going to check that out at highvibe.women or highvibewomen.ca. And if you're interested in learning more about Instagram and using Instagram for your events, or if maybe, social media feels really overwhelming for you, we have an awesome membership that's called our Instagram Business Club, and it's igbusinessclub.com. And if you use the code WELCOME, you can get the first month for $1. So I'd be happy to extend that to all of you folks, and happy to connect.
Oh, I love that. I'll link all that up in the show notes, Kristina. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm excited to stay connected.
Thank you for listening to the Greenroom Central podcast. If you loved this episode, then please take a screenshot on your phone and post it to Instagram, and be sure to tag @SarahPfeiffer and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear or who you'd like to hear from in the future. That'll help me know what to create for you. Also, if scaling events in your business sounds like something you want to tackle this year and you need a coach, let's connect to see if one-on-one coaching is for you. Just go to greenroomcentral.com. You and I can work together one-on-one throughout the course of the year and dive deep into the inner workings of your events and business. You'll receive mentorship, personalized feedback, and customized guidance to define your goals and achieve your next level of success. Just go to greenroomcentral.com right now to apply. I appreciate your commitment to leveling up and learning the mindset and strategy of live events. Keep going. Keep learning. If you want more, head over to greenroomcentral.com for show notes and all the links from today's episode.